how did you find out the news that you were going to be head coach? Did you kind of have an inkling? Did you already talk to Quinn about it, or was it kind of a surprise?
Yeah, it was. It's kind of a unique story. I obviously was under contract to go back to London. I'd been there for the last 2 years, and then was again planning on being was about early July. And they had reached out to me to kind of gauge my interest on it. At first, I kind of told them I'd listen. I was kind of happy with where I was at. And to me, taking a G League head coaching job to leave where I was at wasn't really kind of like the path that seemed ideal, which is interesting as we're standing here now. But again, it was just, to me, I was interested in talking, right? One, from a coaching standpoint as a coach, Quinn's a guy that I've admired from afar and studied for a really long time. So, when Quinn Snyder calls, you answer the phone. And we had a really good conversation. That actually was right before Summer League, that I was going to be at actually with my staff from London, that we were still recruiting and looking and evaluating some players. So told them I was going to be out there. We had set up some meetings, and they kind of went through everything and just kind of laid out what their vision was, kind of how they saw College Park being utilized with Quinn now in a full season of taking over, Landry, just everyone kind of like from ground zero, I guess. And it was, to me, I remember talking, my wife was with me in Vegas, and I remember leaving. The first meeting I had was with Kyle and Daniel Starkman, and I remember leaving the meeting, and I texted my wife, I said, we have a lot to think about, which was a good thing. But again, going back, like I was planning on being back in London, and then the funny part was I had a meeting set up with Quinn the next day. And so I told my wife, I said, we've got to get to a point where we have to figure out, like, do we want to stay in London, and we have to be adamant about it, or we have to be willing to, I think, be open to the idea of moving to Atlanta. I said, because I can't see myself going in and meeting with Quinn, and after meeting with Kyle, and just sitting here saying this doesn't make sense. And what I mean by that is just like fully aligned with this philosophically, how they see things with, the organizational culture, the people they've brought in here that they have here on staff, and that's just in the entire building. And then kind of how they wanted to utilize College Park, how they viewed development, as far as like some of the young guys that they brought in with Seth and Miles being two ways, and then the rookies they had with Mo and Kobe. To me, it was just kind of a too good to be true. And so the more I spoke with them, again, just having alignment with my own personal philosophy and coaching and culture and organizational, it just, to me, I was like, we left Vegas, and we had a tough decision to make. They made the offer right like the day before we left, and I called them back, I think 3 days later, and told them that I accepted it. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So I know I talked to Quinn about his philosophy with the G League, and I know he's a big advocate of it. Just how are you going to be able to kind of instill his schemes and his plans and also keep your own kind of way of doing things? How will you be able to kind of find that balance?
Yeah, and that question honestly is a big reason why I decided like this was a great fit, right? Because I think there wasn't like Quinn's beliefs and then my beliefs, and we're trying to kind of merge them. It was the way he views offense and defense was the same way I do, right? Obviously he's way up here as far as his experience and what he's been doing, what he's done in his career. But I think that to me was what the exciting part was. I didn't feel like I was going to come to a situation and have to learn something completely different or something that I didn't technically necessarily believe in, that it was going to be tough for me to teach. And then on the other side of it, just I think defensively was a lot of our defensive stuff that we're doing with the Hawks in here, was a lot of stuff I did in London last year. And so that familiarity and just like I said, just complete alignment like philosophically with how things should be done and what we want to do. And then the fun part for me was to also talk in the player development piece, where just how are we going to get these guys better? How are we putting in a plan for the younger guys that are going to be going, spending time with us and the Hawks? That to me was just the exciting, as far as just kind of hearing a lot more about that, which is not just like the on-court for College Park, but it was just literally everything they're doing in the weight room, everything they're doing, just like what is like as a whole, how are we helping this player, set a foundation, right, for like hopefully have a 20-year career. And then that was a lot of just, me bringing in our staff, like assistant coaching staff that we brought in. Like there was a lot of thought that went into that, as far as like those people that were in, because again, it's every person is so important. to the long-term success of these guys. So, in a long way of answering your question, it was easy because it wasn't, like I said, we weren't on two ends of the spectrum, and I had to kind of figure out, okay, I have to learn something completely different that I'm not comfortable with. That was a big reason why I thought this was a good fit.
Awesome. And I heard you guys had 1 or 2 scrimmages, I think, against Birmingham over the weekend.
We did, yeah. It was a closed door, behind closed doors, so like no score or anything, and it was valuable. I think honestly, anytime you get a chance to play another opponent, and get a chance to test yourself, and these guys get tired of beating up against each other in training camp. So it was good. I think we looked at a lot of different things. We did some situational things with them, as far as we worked on the target score. The G League is doing that in overtime. You'd be 1st to 7, so we did a couple of those just to kind of test some things out. For me, it was really valuable because we got a chance to look at different lineups, different rotations. We only got one of those, so it's kind of tough to you got to try to take advantage of that as much as possible. But it was good. It was, we're far from a finished product, still a lot of work to do, but it was good. It was a good weekend.
Cool. And how are the two-way guys looking?
They've been great. I think Seth and Miles, to me, it's been fun to watch. You look at the preseason for the Hawks, and as a young guy and a rookie, especially a two-way, your reps are going to be few and far between. Some days you might get on the court a lot, and the next day you might just be standing on the side, just kind of watching and learning while the veteran gets, they take the reps. So to be able to watch those guys experience that, and then to come to our training camp with College Park and then kind of take on, even though they're rookies, like to kind of take on a leadership role. They're familiar with what we're doing offensively and defensively, and then now they are getting the reps. So I think just to be able to a chance to get to see them play and get up and down a little bit more, compete, they've been awesome. And I think too, just both of them are playing really well, on both ends of the ball too. So I think just offensively, I think a lot of people know, they're guys that can really shoot the ball. Miles being 6'10", and the guy that can space the floor. Seth being a guy who, is really tough-nosed defensively and not afraid of the big moment on offense. I think you saw that in the Hawks preseason, which was really fun. And so yeah, they've been great, and I'm excited to work with them.
Do you see a lot of that carryover from like Hawks training camp and their time with the Hawks kind of coming into the Skyhawks training camp?
Yeah, I do. And I think the biggest issue is just familiarity. I think, Quinn's system, both offensively and defensively, it's pretty complex. And I think especially early for rookies that maybe aren't used to running certain things like this. So I think to be able to see them absorb and retain the knowledge that they picked up in Hawks training camp and now bring it to College Park, where now it's not, that learning curve is not as much, like they're familiar. And anytime you get familiar, you're going to be comfortable. When you're comfortable, you're going to have confidence. And that's two guys that have shown a lot of confidence early on in camp.